What's happening? Welcome to the fourth episode of the Slapstream live from Slapsville. This is Djordje, your friendly neighborhood bullfiddle cat. This is the first Slapstream that I had to do pre-recorded. So this one is actually not live. And the reason for that is because my guest today, he lives in Australia, and I live in Slapsville, California, which makes us, I think, 15 or 17 hours apart. So we had to, it's the middle of the night for him right now, but we're both here present. So you can send us live chat as usual, and we're both going to be able to answer. It's just not on the screen, which I don't think it makes too much of a difference. You're still going to be able to enjoy. And as you probably noticed, one of my goals is to show players from very different genres, because I want to tell and convince everyone that slap can be used really in any genre of music. So I played it in classical music when I was studying in conservatory, lots of jazz, lots of experimental stuff. For experimental stuff, it's excellent. And rock as well. So comparable to my other guests, they were like traditional rockabilly and country and early jazz and bluegrass. So now we have a little bit more edgier, a little more rock. It's still a rockabilly or punkabilly or whatever you want to call it. It has slap, which is important for us for the slap stream. And I'm really excited. I love his band and I love the way he plays. I'm really excited about him. And before I introduce him, I want to thank all of us that have been supporting us, and they've been sending donations via these couple links below for PayPal and Venmo, and especially for a few new patrons that we have. That's really going to help us keep it going. And thank you. Please continue doing that. The links are down below, so you can continue doing that, and we really appreciate. All right, without further ado, I want to introduce my next guest. It's Scott Owen from The Living End. I believe he's ready, and now we'll head into the stream. How's it going? Good morning. Hello. It's morning for you over there, right?
It's morning. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just out of bed. Still,
awesome.
Still waking up. It's okay. I was up early. The kids are off to school. Everything's sorted. The day's begun. It's good.
So are the things a little better in Australia, or you also have a second wave of this apocalypse thing like we have here in the US?
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's nowhere near as bad here as it is over there. Especially in Melbourne, where I live, we've managed to control it pretty well. But yeah, there has been a bit of a second wave. There was some demonstrations and a few things. They started to relax the isolation laws a little bit. So yeah, it's just kind of gone into phase 2 now. But still not. We're still in good shape compared to.
That's good. It seems that it's kind of like almost the worst in US right now. I mean, hopefully not for too long. So
I don't know. Along with everything else, huh?
Yeah. I mean, this time we're all in the same boat. So
yeah, exactly.
We have to do what we have to do. Just be careful and, try not to get sick, try not to make anyone sick, which is the most important.
Exactly.
So we do what we can. And how about your gigs? Like, are they all canceled? All tours are canceled?
Yeah, we were halfway through a tour. We were on a tour with some other bands around Australia that had 20 dates in total, and we only got half of that tour done when the COVID thing hit and had to cancel the rest. But we were cancelling. It was weird even before that, because we had to cancel shows on that tour because of fire, because of like rain, like massive storms, and also wind. as well. There was one site where they set up the stage and then they went, "No, we're going to have to pull it down. There's like 100-kilometer-an-hour winds or something," and then to cancel the rest of the tour because of, biohazard
Wow.
or whatever you call it. It's just crazy times, man. Like you can't predict what's normal anymore because it just keeps changing. So
this is just new normal.
Yeah, it's new normal every day, man.
Wow.
So
and all of that happened this year, like all those. I know that you had fire problems last year, so it was.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but also,
so you still had to cancel shows like this year because of the fire in Australia.
January, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's been a shitty year.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, it's crazy times. Well, you just got to keep. We're all in this together, and we've got to keep doing the things that keep us sane, right? Like, like we play our bases. That's what we do.
Exactly. That's why I started Slapstream. Because I was, I have to do something. I can't. All my shows with Tiger Army, all my shows with, other bands that I play with, like my solo record, everything has been postponed. Until. I don't know when. So I'm like, I have all these ideas. I have to do something. And I love teaching. I love talking about bass and figure out, why don't I make this public? Because I'm sure that everybody, well, I'm not sure, but apparently lots of people enjoyed it. So
you should be sure, because we do enjoy it. And like, I don't use the internet. I don't use like social media or any of that kind of stuff much. So I only just kind of stumbled across all of this art of slap bass stuff, and then I watched the other slap streams that you did with Kevin and Ryan. Unreal stuff. And what you do is such a wonderful resource. I remember I saw it only a couple of weeks ago and just went, my God, there's like a giant well of stuff here that I wish I had when I was, 20 years ago. And so just know how appreciated it is, because there's nothing, there's nothing else in this community, this slap community. So you're doing a great service, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. It would definitely be helpful for all of us when we started, learning about bass. I'm not sure if kids nowadays realize that they're getting everything. Now I sound old, but they're getting everything on a plate. So like, you just have to, whatever, go on YouTube and learn how to play single, double slap, whatever. The best guy's going to explain you that.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It's
none of this having to skip school and like go down to the record store and buy because we'd always have to get the imports. We knew when there was one record store in Melbourne, and me and Chris would do that. We'd skip school, catch the train into the city, go to this shop. It was called Hound Dog's Drop Shop, and that was where we get our rockabilly and psychobilly records when we were kids, and all of our live Stray Cats records and all of this kind of the bootlegs and all that kind of stuff. And then we'd take them home and put them on, and we'd be slowly turning them around the turntable to slow them down to see what notes were being played, so that we could learn them. And it's all at the click of a button. Yeah, it's easy. Spoon-fed.
But it takes a little bit of the excitement. I remember doing the same thing, especially those like, you were able to. I grew up in Serbia, so I was able to find most of the stuff. But like those Stray Cats bootlegs, I was really excited. Like every time when I had a chance to lay my hands on it, I was like, yeah, this is so cool. So they did this. It's. I'm still excited talking about Stray Cats.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a crazy thing. But yeah, I really appreciate you saying all those things. Art of slap bass has been kind of like my baby, my passion. I want to provide as much information, and I have also Ryan Gould helping me out with some great articles on early slap, and it's been going great. Lots of people are subscribed on the website. Lots of people are following on YouTube. It's great. So for all of you that are watching this, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, because I'm going to start posting lots of cool slap bass content. So do that. And Okay, so we've been talking about Stray Cats for a little bit, you know, and I wanna. My first question is like, how did you develop your own style? I know that Lee Rocker has been your influence. It was your influence when you were a kid. So, but you don't sound like that. You have kind of your own thing. So I want to hear more about that. How did you manage to create your own voice, your own sound, your own stamp?
Well, yeah, like, well, as you say, yeah, it's, you know, it's hard not to talk about Lee because he was such a massive influence, and he just opened the door, opened such a massive doorway into what can be done. But I guess after that, it was like getting into psychobilly stuff, and there was a band, there was a couple of bands in Melbourne that I really liked. There was one in particular called the Fireballs, and their bass player Joe Phantom was a massive, he is still a massive hero of mine, because they were playing psychobilly, punk, right, fast speed stuff. It was like dangerous and loud, and it was like metal as well, and it was just savage. Like they were a really savage band. Like they weren't a very neat, tidy, clean, polished psychobilly band. They were savage, and Joe was a savage bass player as well, and I loved that. Like I loved that approach. So I used to just watch and watch and watch him. I used to go to all their gigs. They also had the Fireballs, were a three-piece, and they also had a rockabilly band called the Strikes as well, which was the three of them. And they had a singer whose name was Bonehead, and he was from a surf garage kind of punk band called Intoxica, another local Melbourne band. And they were unreal. He was like this crazy cross between like Iggy Pop and Jerry Lee Lewis or something, like this excellent, like kind of really loony frontman. And that was where the Fireballs kind of tightened up and played like a lot cleaner and a lot more rockabilly sort of style.
Oh, interesting. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned. Sorry to interrupt you. Fireballs opened for Tiger Army when we played.
Yeah.
A few years ago when we toured Australia. So it was fun, like to play with those guys for a few shows. But they were pretty metal, like pretty edgy right now. I didn't know they had that rockabilly phase.
They always have been pretty metal, but they were a bit less metal because they've got two guitar players now, and before that they were a three-piece. Like back when I used to go and see them all the time, they were a three-piece, and their guitar player was called Matt Black, and he just had like a really fabulous dose of rockabilly, psychobilly, and metal, all in really good proportion. It was not too much of something. Like he played the metal, he played like with a real metal kind of sound, and like really squealing sort of abstract kind of guitar solos and stuff. But he also knew how to play rockabilly as well, and he used to incorporate that a lot. And he was incredible for that band because he was such a tight guitar player as well. And yeah, anyway, I could go on all day about the Fireballs, but back to your question, it was definitely Joe had a big influence on my style of playing, because he was one of the guys that I kind of admired the most. I mean, there was guys around Melbourne like this. There's another guy called Dan Rondeau, Slappin' Dan, who was an unreal bass player. He was a big hero of mine too, and he was really good at like the traditional rockabilly and the country kind of slap, and an unreal showman as well. Like standing up on his bass and spinning it and playing it like a guitar and doing all the tricks, all the Bill Haley tricks and all that kind of stuff. He was excellent. And then there was like these other bands in the rockabilly scene, like older guys who, like I really admired their playing, but it was just more, the attitude of the psychobilly sort of stuff, like the aggression and the energy of it was what I was kind of more drawn to, rather than like trying to learn my way around jazz and country and all that kind of stuff. It's a bit more kind of heavy-handed and a little less going on up here and more going on sort of down there somewhere. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Like 2 years ago or a few years ago, like I played in a band called Molotov. I mean, I still play with them from Mexico. Great guys, great band. They're kind of like a Rage Against the Machine type of thing, but I played in their acoustic lineup. And the piano player was from the Beastie Boys,
right?
Money Mark. And he told me that Mick Jagger told him when they were doing a session that the music has to be balanced in between here, here, and here. So as long as you have these three balanced.
By here you mean your gut, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of interesting thing. So you were drawn more to the edgier type of thing. That you were, how old were you back in, like 15 or so?
Well, no, I mean, no. I think I was about 15 or 16 or something, maybe even 16 or 17 when I got my first double bass. I was learning piano and like started getting into like 50s rock and roll with Chris at school around about that 15, 16, 17 years old. But it wasn't till like 18, 19 and stuff till I could start going out to venues and seeing bands and stuff. Like we tried to sneak into a few venues when we were underage, but and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, and we'd have to stand out on the street and listen through the window. But we did that at a few like Five Balls gigs and stuff. I remember I got into one and I was with Chris and another mate of mine, and we went to go in and they let me in, and then they stopped my other two mates, and I was like, they're outside the window. But yeah, so this was around about that sort of 17, 18 years of age kind of period, yeah.
And as far as like, so you mentioned mostly Australian bands. Besides Australian bands, like were you guys into psychobilly from Europe as well, or not?
Yeah, some of it, but like some of it we were. There was a band called the Coffin Nails that we saw. We were limited, right, by what we like I said, we had this record store in Melbourne called Hound Dog's Bop Shop. And they had a lot of like traditional rockabilly stuff, and then they would have a small crate over in the corner for psychobilly stuff, for like us little small handful of guys in Melbourne that were into psychobilly music. And every now and then, on import they'd get some new psychobilly records in their crate. So we'd go into the shop and see if there's anything new. So we were kind of limited to whatever they got. And there was when we got the record from the Coffin Nails, we really got into that, and we learned a couple of songs from that record. I think it was the record from, this is really tested by memory because it's over 25 years ago, but the record was called Eine Bier Bitte, which is, for some reason it's an English band but a German title, whatever. And there was a song called, I want to say Uncle Harry, but it's not Uncle Harry. That's our song.
Yeah, I know.
Uncle Willie. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Uncle Willie. And
one of the ankles.
Yeah. We used to close our shows with that song every night because it was our crazy psychobilly song in our set. But then there were other bands as well. There was like Guana Bats, a bunch of other like English and European psychobilly bands that we heard. But the one band that I really loved and I still do to this day is the Happy Drivers. I really love them because their songs aren't so much like 12-bar blues and rockabilly playing. They're more songs with hooks and part, more kind of more like I want to say like pop songs or like rock songs, but
radio friendly.
Sorry,
like radio friendly, something that you can imagine like people hearing on a radio and whistling or something.
Yeah, exactly. yeah, more melodic, and but still, you know, still with a good amount of like energy, and still like not light and soft. And also like really tight players as well. Like they played like a rock band as well, with in their tightness and kind of heaviness as well, but without being leaning too much on the metal side. Yeah, that I loved their blend. I like the way they did it.
That's cool. And so you got into rockabilly and psychobilly kind of like, so with Chris, right? I'm talking about, you know, whoever is not familiar with Scott, I'm talking about Chris Chaney, excellent guitar player from the Living End, from Scott's band. So you two were buddies in the school? Is that a thing?
Yeah. So we met each other when we were like, I don't know, 12 years old or something. Our older sisters were friends, so we met each other through family, and then we ended up going to high school together. So yeah, we sort of hung out with each other for throughout high school, and we grew up out in the suburbs of Melbourne, and there was really only like one other guy at the school who even knew what rockabilly was, even knew who Elvis was, apart from obvious, you know, this was like the early 90s when people were into either Bon Jovi and like LA kind of metal, or started getting into grunge, I suppose, or whatever. No one else was in. People only thought of Elvis and Buddy Holly and Eddie Cochran and Gene Vincent and these 50s artists as people that your parents listened to. So it wasn't. I know, you know, anyone who's kind of into it knows all this, but yeah. So yeah, it was me and Chris, and yeah, we used to go out looking for what the Melbourne, the very limited but very kind of healthy and thriving Melbourne rockabilly scene could teach us, and you know, we could explore it, and it was yeah, it was great.
Did you have a band at that time already?
Yeah, well, we started playing when we were about, I guess, like 16, 17 years old, and we started just playing Stray Cats songs. Well, the funny thing is, and this, you know, leads to one of the things I want to play. So something's come up. I just need to go like that. Wonders of technology.
Yeah.
So when we were in high school, I used to bring my bass to school. Chris would bring his guitar to school, and there was a drummer at school, but he wasn't into rockabilly. He was into metal. He was like a full-on metalhead.
Oh, wow.
So we used to have to do a bit of a trade-off. We'd go into the music room at lunchtime because there was amps and a drum kit in there, and we'd spend the hour jamming together. And so we'd have to do a trade-off. If we wanted him to learn some Stray Cats songs, then we'd have to learn some Iron Maiden songs so that we could all be happy.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah. You know, I always thought, like, when I heard actually for the first time the Living End, I thought there was some Maiden influence, especially because of that kind of galloping groove that Chris is doing, and you too. So I kind of hear that influence. I always thought, like, that must be like Iron Maiden. So it was.
It was, yeah. I mean, we would never have thought back then that we were going to be like. I love Iron Maiden now. Like they're just. Yeah. How can you not? They're incredible.
Of course.
Doesn't matter what you're into. If you can't appreciate Iron Maiden, then man, you know, you're missing out because they're just incredible. But back then, we just did it because we had to. We were like, well, we have to make sure this guy's, you know, not too bored playing rockabilly, trying to swing, you know, like this long hair, double kick, full toms and cymbals everywhere. And he's like, we're trying to get him to go chin, chat, cha, choo, chat, cha, cha, chat, cha, cha. He's probably going, oh, kill me. This is so boring. All I want to do is go double kick and go crazy.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, but now I'm so grateful for that because we got an introduction to Iron Maiden at an early age. It was fabulous.
Yeah, that's great. It's kind of hard, like when you're a kid, you always think like, you know, I want to be focused on the main thing that I want to do, and I don't want to play anything else around it. And then later on, you actually realize more influences you have, your music develop in a certain way that you maybe would not be able to do it otherwise if you haven't heard, you know, a certain band or a certain bass player or whoever. It kind of like influences you and then makes you a better musician, makes you a better person, you know, and then makes your music better, which I think it's the goal. You mentioned that you wanted to play something. So what did you like? What is something metal influenced, or what did you have in mind?
Yeah, I've got Iron Maiden's song "Phantom of the Opera," which is one of the songs.
Killer.
Which is one of the songs that we used to play in the music room at lunchtime at Wheelers Hill High School back in 1991 or 1991 or whatever, as a trade-off for our drummer so that he would play Stray Cat Strut.
And you already had a band. You were like already so you were already a rockabilly band with upright bass. You had an upright bass at that time?
I got an upright bass, yeah, when I was in, it must have been around 1990, 1991 or something, when I was in about year 11 at school, just, you know, last couple of years of high school. But when we were playing in the music room with this guy called Shane Jackson, his name is, we hadn't really started the band yet. This was just us sort of jamming for the first time. It was another guy from school, another drummer, this guy called Grant Walton, who we convinced to, you know, quiff up his hair and wear some of our bowling shirts and stand up and play the drums like Slim Jim. That was when we decided that we'd start a band, and like, but we were still in high school. This was like 91, 92 or something.
That's the Runaway Boys, right? You were not living here back then, right?
We called ourselves the Runaway Boys, exactly, because we just basically played Stray Cat songs.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to hear that that Maiden that you mentioned.
Right. All right. Let's get
ready.
Move into the playing phase of the interview.
Yeah.
All right. So let's make sure we get everything right here. Am I in the right spot?
You're on a perfect spot.
Good. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to hit play on my phone here, and it's going to get loud. So I'll just go ahead and hope it works. Anyway, anyway. So
that's awesome, man. I love it.
So on and so forth. It goes, as you could imagine, with Iron Maiden, the song goes through about 5 or 6 different changes in tempo and rhythm, and yeah, it's called Phantom of the Opera. It's a rock.
Yeah,
that's the slap bit anyway.
It's great. I mean, as I said, like I always heard that Maiden influence. I never had a chance to ask Chris about it, but it's so okay. So that's it. I'm glad I was right, and I'm glad you did that, because I think that also influenced other bands. You know, it's great to see how many people were introduced to rockabilly and psychobilly through Living End, and I think that you guys really helped out, kind of freshen up the scene and bringing something new. And that was always my thing. I always wanted to hear the bands that actually bring something exciting and something fresh, something that I haven't heard before. So Living End did that for me. And every time I've seen you play, it's always amazing.
Well, that's what this kind of music needs, right? I mean, it starts off with roots kind of music, you know, like your jazz and your country and stuff like that. And that's what made a thing called rockabilly, was because they were pulling from different things. And it's cool just to kind of keep it in that bag or whatever. But I just think it's important for the style to evolve by moving with the times and allowing cool things that have happened in music over the last 50 years to also come in and influence the style, so that it does evolve into new and exciting things as well. I mean, I appreciate that some people are just kind of retro minded and they like their things to sound stylized and authentic. But yeah, there's two different. On the other hand, some people aren't retro-minded. Some people are like evolution and like the way things can grow and develop. And I think we're just those kind of people.
I absolutely agree. I can't wait for a new Living End or new Stray Cats, like to show up on the scene and see what's the next step for the style. Even I appreciate lots of traditional bands. For me, it was always kind of the songs. The songs were the most important. And then I think that's what originally drew me to the Living End, the great songs. And then, the production and the style and the playing, musicianship and all of that stuff. And I sometimes often lack that in traditional rockabilly, because usually people try to copy something and then you're kind of like stuck in a certain box. I mean, it same goes like for bands that try to copy the Stray Cats or the Living End, and then you're kind of stuck in that Stray Cats box. But if you bring something new and fresh, what Elvis did, what the Stray Cats did, and you guys and a few other bands, I think that's what makes it more interesting, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit that you started mostly because of the Stray Cats. Since we're on that subject, do you remember what was the first song that you learned, or the first lick, or do you want to play something in that, from that period?
I thought that it might be appropriate. I know, like it's for bass players and stuff. I know it's kind of simple, and for rockabilly people, I know it's kind of predictable. But I thought I may as well play Stray Cats Strut, because it was when I was, as we talked about before, I was like 16, 17, just starting to get into rockabilly. There's some really weird synchronization things that happened. Some guy at school showed us the Stray Cats for the first time, and I think it was Rant and Rave. Somehow managed to get our hands on a copy of the Rant and Rave record, and I remember hearing it for the first time and putting it on the record player and hearing the Harley start up and whatever that first song is, Teenage Rebels Rule, okay, or whatever it is.
Rebels Rule.
And just going, wow, what a sound. That is incredible. And all this excitement was happening. And then the strangest thing happened. My dad was taking our dog for a walk down the local park, And he was like, you know, at this stage I was playing piano and Chris was playing guitar, and sometimes we'd have a little jam together. I was, you know, trying to play some 12-bar blues on the piano and he would solo over it, and we'd have a little fun, you know. So Dad's walking the dog through the park and he looks down and there's a cassette on the grass, just laying on the grass. So he goes, oh, I'll just stick it in my pocket and take it home. You know, Scott likes music. Maybe it'll be something he's into. So he comes home and he goes, here, look, I don't know if you'll want it or not, but I found this down the park. And it was a copy of the Stray Cats' first album, Runaway Boys, on cassette. And I was like, wow, it's the Stray Cats. I just heard about this band and it's their first record. It was like, wow, it's totally meant to be, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, one thing led to another, and it was only a very short matter of time before I went, you know, look, I've got $1,500 saved up from working at my dad's supermarket, saved up to buy a car when I turn 18 in a couple of years. Screw the car, man. I'm going to go and buy a double bass. And Chris, let's jam properly. You know, enough of this piano stuff. I never liked learning how to play piano anyway. Screw the piano, man. That's gone. I'm going to go and buy a bass. And my mum and dad were kind enough to say, yeah, sure, if that's what you want to do, go for it. So Dad took me to the local luthier in town, and I bought my first bass, which was just a Czechoslovakian student bass, you know, just a flat.
Oh,
back.
I'm familiar with those basses. That's all we had in Yugoslavia.
Yeah, the same as flat back, plywood, cheap student bass. Totally, that did the job, man.
Oh yeah.
And I'd never touched a double bass before. I went into the shop with my $1,500 and I walked out with a bass, and it was the first one that I'd ever played, the first one that I'd ever seen in real life, the first one that I ever touched. And I didn't know how to play it, but I just gave it a go. And Chris taught me where the notes to Stray Cats Strut were on the fingerboard, and they were the first 4 notes that I played, and it was the first song that I played. So I just figured, why don't I just...
Let's do that. Let's hear it.
Why don't I give myself a little trip down nostalgia lane?
Awesome.
And I'll have a play.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do that.
Yeah, I'll never forget that, though. The first time I played it and went, wow, that sounds just like the record. That's amazing. So anyway, here we go. I'll do my best job. cat class and I got cat style.
That's awesome. I really like that you played the way Rocker played it with those little walking lines. Usually people just play C, C, B, B flat, A flat, G, you know, and you play the whole little counterpoint.
Oh, I've tried to copy him as much as possible.
Oh yeah.
I'm not afraid to. I'm not trying to hide anything, man. I've really tried to copy it. I even found on YouTube actually that there's a bass isolated, like a YouTube clip that's audio of just the bass of Lee's bass from the recording isolated, so you can hear it. Yeah, you can hear just his instrument on its own. It's great.
I should check that out. I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
I wish I had a chance to see that when I was starting out, when I was 12.
No, that's just what we needed, isn't it?
It's just, I remember, you know, I already played for a few years, but then I heard about those instructional DVDs, I mean VHS tapes at that time, and I was like, okay, I have to get these. And then it was Kevin Smith with Mark Rubin, and it was Lee Rocker, and you know, it took them forever to arrive. I had to, you know, find somebody to get those for me, and it was a mess. But I got him. I was stoked.
Same.
And seeing Rock Tokyo with Lee Rocker playing at the beginning, that was also kind of influential.
Like that sound check that he does. I think he plays like a 12 bar.
That was the best part, right?
How many times did you pause?
Oh man!
Pause, rewind. Must have been
something special,
yeah.
And I remember getting that VHS tape on the black market because Yugoslavia was under sanctions at that time, so we couldn't buy anything normal in the store. So I had to find it on a black market in front of youth cultural center, and it was really, that's where I was buying all my records and VHS tapes, but those were also bootlegs, so you couldn't get like anything.
So you could get like, you know, like political stuff on the black market, rock and roll, culture, arts, and stuff, huh?
It was interesting times.
Yeah,
but the thing that I'm grateful for is that, you know, I was able to find any kind of music. You know, if it came out like day before, you were able to find it somehow there. So
yeah,
that was a good thing. You know, I was able to buy lots of records for, you know, vinyl was expensive because it was always imported, but like everything else was bootleg. So I was able to I was exposed to lots of different music styles. So that was kind of cool thing. And it made me excited about it because it was just not easy to get it. So like, okay, so I really have to make an effort to do this. And I did it, and I'm happy about it. It's great. One question, like before your shows, you know, you have like a high energy shows with the Living End, and you do all kinds of stuff, showmanship, and then you sing and you slap and play pizzicato, and like there's lots of influences and lots of energy involved to do the Living End show. So do you do any type of warm-ups, or what do you do? Meditate or something?
Yeah, a bit of both. I do warm up. Warming up is the thing that has to be done. Like the hands and the arms just need to be warmed up. They need to be ready, because otherwise they cramp up. You get the terrible rock hard forearms, and then your fingers, you start to lose control of them, and you feel like you're starting to haul some sort of meat axe at the instrument rather than, you know, something that you can actually play with any finesse or with any dynamics. Beating it with a fist if you're not warmed up properly. And it takes a long time. Like for me, I don't feel like I'm warmed up until we're like a couple of weeks into a tour.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I feel like I'm really warmed up, because I'm still using really heavy gauge strings because I play a lot of, I think you say pizzicato, right?
Yep.
This finger style, lots of like playing an electric bass, basically, because a lot of the songs call for that. So I need to have the magnetic pickups and the very high gauge, heavy duty steel strings, but I also have to have the action really high so that I can slap as well. So, I mean, I've thought about having two basses, having one set up with steel and magnetic and low action so that I can play nice and gently and with finesse when I'm playing pizzicato or whatever you say. And then having a bass set up with, maybe some lighter gauge strings and higher action, or maybe even like wound strings or something with higher action for the slap, so that it's not, so you can play a bit more gentle, like again with more finesse. But I just don't. I just like playing one instrument and just keeping it simple and making it difficult for myself. So yeah, it does take physically. It takes a lot because the action's high and you have to hit it really hard. It takes a couple of weeks to warm up for me, like of playing, hour and a half or whatever, 2 hours per night. It takes a lot of warm up for the arms to feel match fit, to feel strong. And then, even, as we all know, the energy of the performance that comes on top of that as well. Yeah, it takes a level of fitness. You've got to be in good shape.
Oh yeah, of course. Do you know the height of your strings by any chance? Like lots of people ask that.
I don't know exactly.
I don't know about mine, but do you know?
I don't know exactly what it is in millimeters, but it must be like 10 or something, because I can easily get my finger under the strings. So yeah, I guess, I don't know, around maybe.
And what kind of strings are you using?
There's the Tomastic Spirocore strings with the ones with the red ends, the highest gauge ones that you can get.
They used to have the red one. Those are orchestra. Those are kind of like medium, and they used to have. I'm not sure if they still making those. I should know that, but like they used to have the black ones. It was also Spirocore, but it was the heavy tension. So it was those were like even step up. I play Spirocores, so often. I don't play just Spirocores, but I always play Tomastic. But Spirocore is kind of like my to-go strings if I something like whatever is the easiest. Spirocore. Those are great strings. I mean, I use the bow. It's great.
Yeah. They're just hard when you're out of practice, like we all are now, because no one's out there playing shows at the moment. And what I find is that it doesn't matter how much you sit there in the lounge room at home and practice and play. Once you get together with the band and the volume goes up and the adrenaline goes up and everything, you automatically you start using 50% more energy, and it's like, whoa! It's always a shock to us when we go into the rehearsal room for the first time. We all go, oh my God, I forgot how hard this is. Oh no, I feel so old. And this is such a challenge. And we're like, all right, we just got to do it. We just got to punch our way through the pain.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Starts to feel
we've all been there, and now we don't feel like being musicians at all. But show me like the way you
warm up thing. I always start off warming up as country, as this. And then I find myself doing hammer-ons here. I love doing hammer-ons. It's just another little element that I really enjoy. So I've got this thing that I've worked out that I can show you. It's a little.
Actually, let me grab the bass real quick. Which key is that?
It's played with the country thing, but rather than thinking about like a country rhythm, I always think about like a funk rhythm, like a doom-ch.
Ah, okay. A little more groovy.
Think about that, and I don't know, it just makes it feel a little bit more groovy than just your kind of straight up swing, shuffle, or whatever. But it's like like this. And then I'll show you this thing. I can teach you this little thing that I always use to warm up.
Please do.
Something like this, anyway.
All right, let's do section by section, if you don't mind.
Okay, cool. So the first section is this. Oh, sorry.
And it's in A? Is that what you said?
In A, yeah, correct.
Goes back to A?
Correct.
Okay, so
correct.
and it changes a little bit, right?
The second time, so first we go up the hill to A. Up the hill, second time. Down the hill. Up the hill. Down the hill.
Okay, so I'll try both. You guys, if you haven't grabbed your bases, you should do that now. So you should learn from Scott now. It's your unique opportunity. Okay, so that's up the hill, and down the hill is, right? Okay.
That's a C. Correct. Yeah, correct. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
And
then I just played like a little fill. So I just went around up the hill, down the hill, up the hill, down the hill, and then I just played a little fill at the end, which went like this.
So 3 triplets at the end. So
yes,
like that.
Yeah.
Is there a triplet at the very end or not?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So 3 triplets. Three
triplets, correct.
They're not triplets, but okay. 3 triple slaps.
Perfect.
All right. Let me see if I can do the whole thing.
Beautiful.
All right. Now I know how to warm up. I never warm up. I should.
Yeah, that's what I
okay, don't leave your base yet. I have a little question. There's lots of confusion in slap bass community. Not confusion. I tried to write an articles about it, and I mean I did. And I wonder what kind of terminology like are you using when you refer to different slap patterns? So like a single slap, double slap, triple slap, gallop, whatever you do. How do you name all these patterns? So what's single slap for you, for example?
Single slap would be this.
Okay. Same for me. And double slap? We're on the same page. All right. And triplet?
I guess also I guess what we need to talk in terms of swing rhythm and straight rhythm as well, because that's when I think things things can become confusing when you frame it with the 2 rhythms. So there's double slap with a swing and double slap with a straight.
Absolutely, yeah. I completely agree with you. And triple slap. So what else? What is the other terminology that you're using besides single and double?
Here's where it gets confusing. Here's why you just don't talk about it. You just play it. But if you're trying to notate it, you have to have the conversation. So when you're playing swing in double, and then you add I would say that's adding a triple slap. But when you're playing straight in a straight with double, and then you go. I would say that this is a triplet because it's a 2 and a 3 and a 4.
But can you just play the first one when you say triple?
So with the swing,
the first one, the one that you don't call triple. Oh, okay.
I'd say that's a triple slap, yeah? Oh, no, that's a triplet as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I call both of those triplets, you know?
The triplets, yeah. This is where it can become weird. Triple or triplets is different, right?
For me, triple slap is as long as you have a slapped note and then 2 hits, you know? So if you want to do triplet, it's a triplet, but it's still part of the triple slap. And triple slap would be also gallop, which is it's just a different pattern, but it's still triple slap because you have a note and 1 and 2 and 3 after that. And it's interesting that you mentioned swing and straight because I always thought there's a little bit something in between. We have that a little bit in the Balkans. It's straight, but you're shuffling it just a tiny bit, and it's music, so it's magic. You can't just just tell oh, it's this way or the other way. But I wanted to mention this is what we do, and it's kind of this double and gallop, but it's straight, but tiny bit kind of swing. This is like standard line that I'm going to play. So it's kind of there, but it's it's straight but a little bit swingy.
Yeah, right.
And,
That's is that something that you could also call a drag slap as well?
Oh no, drag. I don't like that term very well because there's like different ways how to do it. I talked with Kevin a little bit in the first episode about it. You can do it with like this way, like just a palm, or you can do just fingers. I noticed that if I'm in a studio situation when it has to be something more produced, I use more just fingers. But I always heard it as a fast gallop. So let's see. It's kind of like gallop. Just like, yeah, but these are faster, so
yeah.
And what they call drag, it's like when we use like whole palm, and then instead of just fingers for that takadam, you're using trang, so it sounds a little bit different. It's like this.
Wow.
Just for me, it was always like a fast gallop it's an ornament, but fast gallop. And then if you want to drag it more, you get more of that drunk feel. And you can actually really hear that when you play gut strings. On steels, I play steels as well. So it's a little bit less noticeable, but you can still hear it. Yeah. And any other patterns that you use?
Well, not really, other than, you know, what I was showing you with that warm-up thing, which is all of the things that we've already gone through are in it, but just, you know, doing it without just being on, without just being on the beat or just using the off beats, you know.
I like that. It's awesome. It's great.
There's no other patterns, but there is one other pattern that I've seen you guys do, which is the quadruple.
Yep.
Which I'd love it if you could show me how to do that.
Oh yeah, of course. It's the same logic. It's just like one of these, and then you have 3 of these. So.
Okay, so there's no secret. It's just an extra hit. I saw somebody, I can't remember who, maybe it was that guy, Nicolas Debouche or whatever his name is. Oh, yeah,
Nicolas Debouche. That's a different quadruple. I can show you that one as well.
He does you seen this?
Oh, I seen that. He sent me that. It's, I think he's doing, I forgot. So it's, you wanted that one, but it's the same sound.
Yeah, but you do it like this. Yeah.
Well, I for different situations I do it differently, but like for that, if it's just straight quadruple, it's that. But you can also have, if you want to have that Willie Dixon quadruple slap, which is basically 2 double slaps, and second.
Oh yes, that's another one.
That's a different thing. Then it's that's basically this. But second note is muted, so it sounds like just like like not intonated. So it sounds. On top of my window. Something like that, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
That's basically the idea.
Okay,
you can always practice that at just one note and then. But that's the sound. That's how Willie Dixon was most likely playing. We spent hours about it, or days, Nikolai and me talking about it, and then he figured it out. And I'm pretty sure it's correct. It also sounds a little bit different on steel strings than on guts, what Willie Dixon was playing, or on what or the strings that Nicolas Debouche is using.
Yeah, right.
But there's that one, the other one. I don't use that quadruple that you mentioned. You can do it, but I see it more as it's kind of like one extra stick, you know. But you know, my main thing is like if I'm in a studio in a situation and somebody hired me to play. They never want you to play a little, I wouldn't say sloppy, but you know, they want it like precise, especially nowadays music has to be, you know, polished, and it has to, if you want them to call you again, you know, you have to be, your intonation has to be perfect, you have to be precise, you have to groove, you have to, all those things. So those were kind of like my priorities. These little tricks work better in a smaller smaller group situation when you can maybe without drums or like make like a jazz combo or something.
Yeah.
Those are all cool.
Yeah, especially, you know, what you say about intonation and timing and groove and stuff like that. These are by far the most important things. Like they're not almost, you know, obviously bass lines and choice of note is important, but these three things are equally as important. And especially with a drummer, you know, when you're playing like with you know, drums playing fast beat, you really got to hit when the snare hits. Otherwise, you hear it in the studio, you get these slamming between the click and the snare. And
I absolutely agree with you.
You know, understandably, it can drive drummers absolutely crazy because they're not. It makes them sound bad also when we're not playing perfectly tight with them.
I agree.
It's so important, yeah. And obviously, and then, you know, like with a three-piece, for me, timing and groove has to be perfect. It has to be like solid, like a metronome, perfectly in time with the drum. And Andy, our drummer, is such a fabulous drummer, and he can play with a metronome, but he can push in front of the metronome if you want the part to sound like it's got more energy, or he can play a little bit back from the metronome as well. So we always need to communicate with this, that, you know, we need to know where each other is in not just falling on the beat, but are you falling into the beat or are you falling out of the beat?
Absolutely.
Things are incredibly important, and all they take to get right is time and practice. And once you've got it, and you can fall into that groove with the drummer, and it's the most fabulous thing. It's the best feeling, and it works.
He's amazing. Yeah. Once you find a drummer that you actually are grooving and you have a pocket, you keep him.
Yeah.
And he's the second drummer of the Living End, or he's not the original guy, right?
No, when like I was talking earlier about how we had these guys from high school who we jammed with, and then we found this guy. Chris and I were in the city in Melbourne one day, busking on the street, and we found this guy. He came up to us, this guy called Joe Piripizzi, who played on our first few EPs that we released. There's one called Hellbound and one called It's For Your Own Good. Mm-hmm. Anyway, early days before the first record. This guy, Joe, he was an Argentinian guy, like 6 foot something, tall guy, big quiff, leather jacket, super cool, played drums standing up. He was an excellent drummer. And he literally came up to me and Chris on the street when we were busking going, who the hell are you guys? Like, where did you come from? You know, Joe was a bit older. He was like, you know, part of the rockabilly scene. He was a really good dancer. He could jive. And so he sees me and Chris on the street, these two like barely teenagers playing Stray Cat songs. And he's like, who the hell are these guys? I haven't seen them before. This is weird. So he came up and introduced himself. And sure enough, you know, we were looking for a drummer because our drummers from high school weren't really into rockabilly. They were just, you know, just kind of playing along. So he became our drummer, and he was unreal. Like he stood up and played. He was a big Stray Cats fan, loved Slim Jim and loved the Fireballs. And you know, this is where we really started to develop our style with Joe. And then anyway, so that went on for a few years, and then just before we recorded our first record, Joe went, and a drummer called Travis Dempsey joined the band, and he played on the first two records. He was like not a rockabilly guy at all. He was more of like a rock guy and a funk guy, and just a very like drummer's drummer. I think he used to teach drums. He certainly did later on, but he worked in a drum shop in Melbourne. And he was like a really good, you know, like technically good drummer, and you know, like a bit crazy as well. He was a big fan of Keith Moon, so he was good at like doing the crazy fills, and like being a little bit experimental and that kind of stuff with his playing. He was really good at doing the loose thing as well. So yeah, that was great. And then Andy joined the band. So that was, I guess, like, I don't know, third album or something, third or fourth album or something like that. But yeah, he's been, you know, the longest serving member.
It's amazing. I mean, you guys sound like, you know, amazing together. You know, I've seen you, but I've never seen you with anyone else besides Andy. And it's always, I mean, every show that I've seen, it's great. You know, it's always, I seen you first time at the Warped Tour. We talked for a little bit, you know, like after the show. I was not playing. I think that was just when I moved to the States. Like It must be like 2005 or something. I moved in 2004, so it had to be like maybe a year or two later. And I seen you play in San Francisco once or twice, and then in Los Angeles last time you were here 2 years ago or something.
When we played that show with Wild Roses.
I believe so. Yes. Yes.
Somewhere.
Chris's other band, Chris's LA band.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That had to be like 2 years ago. Then it was Reverend Horton Heat's Hayride.
That's right.
Horton's Hayride, the one that you guys played as well. But I was late on that one. I had something before. I forgot what. I think that I had a gig. Was Reverend Horton Heat an influence as well on you guys when you started?
Totally.
When you started, but a little bit later. Or...
Yeah, totally. Like, because, you know, we discovered the Stray Cats. We discovered all this 1950s rockabilly, you know, like all the popular rock and roll stuff, and then also the more kind of rootsy kind of rockabilly, you know, Carl Perkins and Johnny Burnett and stuff like that. And the world was kind of opening up, and then like, yeah, so we found the other bands in Melbourne, and I think it was the guys from the Fireballs that introduced us to the Reverend Horton Heat and said, you got to check out this stuff, you know. It's like, it's another thing, you know, it's another world, it's another take on it all. And
yes,
it was a huge influence, because I remember hearing songs like $400.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's all about the song, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just bum ba bum ba bum ba 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 ba. It's not just 12 bar. It's like got a guitar riff, you know. It sounds like a rock and roll tune, as in, you know, not rockabilly, like rock and roll. Yeah. And
I love Reverend Horton Heat. I really hope I'm gonna get Jimbo soon on the Slapstream. We've been already talking about it. We'll make it happen. Not sure when, but you know, soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
As always, like all the viewers, you should let me know who do you want to see, and better to do that on the comments below the video, not on the side, because those are the ones that it's kind of easier for some reason to check. And make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, so that I know that you actually like this and that you're following this. All right, so, and ask questions. We are probably already responding on the side, on the live chat, but ask questions, and we're gonna keep doing that. This particular episode has been pre-recorded, but we're present. It's just like in the middle of the night, so it was not possible in Australia. So it was not possible.
Well, we are to play. O'clock in the morning to do that bit, to do
yeah.
This. But that's okay.
Yeah, it's easier to do that than donk.
I can still do it with my pajamas on at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you won't see my words.
Wow. Are there any plans? I mean, after, if ever this whole thing ends, like any touring plans for the Living End in US or like outside of Australia?
No actual plans, but you know what, we did some shows a couple of years ago. Was it last year or 2 years ago? I can't remember. With the Dead Kennedys. Mm-hmm. They've expressed interest in us doing some more shows with them, so that's cool, because if we can get back to the States you know, obviously when everything cools off and it's okay to travel and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's still hard for us. We don't have a huge following in America, so it's hard for us to be able to afford to come over, you know, without having to pay to play too much. So they've expressed interest in having us come over again. So that could be cool. That could be, you know, a ticket to the States again. That'd be unreal. But yeah, you know, like we don't have any solid plans, obviously, because there's no such thing as plans anymore.
Of course, especially, yeah. But I believe that was last year, because I remember you had a problem with your bass or something happened before the first show. I remember that Chris texted me and he was like, we're in Oakland.
Yeah.
Do you have any bases here or something like that? Right? Or I'm imagining something.
No, you're absolutely right. I got to the first show in Oakland and opened up my case, and my bass had been snapped clean off. The neck had been snapped clean off.
A nightmare.
At the airport, yeah. Going through customs, they'd opened up the case and left a customs declaration thing saying that it had been searched, and it must have been taken out of the case. They must have lifted it up because there was no damage on the case. But what had happened was the end pin from the bass was out, had been taken out of the bass and just put in the case. So I'm assuming that customs officials or immigration people or whatever had opened up the case and lifted the bass by grabbing the end pin, lifted it, maybe holding it upside down, because there was also a little knock just around the headstock. Not this bass, there's a different bass. So anyway, I think that's how it happened. You know, someone obviously made a mistake.
But you were able to fix it, right? Or you got another bass?
Fixed, yeah. When I got back home, I got it fixed. But yeah, so this was we were like getting ready to play a show that night. So we were putting calls out to everybody. You were one of them, putting calls out to everybody to try and find a bass quickly. And our tour manager, Big Red Dog, was able to find someone he knew had a rehearsal studio like less than 1 mile away from where the show was, who had a bass that I could borrow. So I was saved the day. Yeah,
that's upright bass player's nightmare right there. You make all that effort to travel with the bass, and you do it, and then you arrive to the opposite part of the world, and you're not able to use it.
Me and my partner and my bass had a holiday in Mexico before we arrived in San Francisco as well. So we made it all the way from Australia, all the way over to the Yucatan in Mexico, all the way up to, and then it got damaged on the very last bit from there to...
From Mexico to LA, to San Francisco, Oakland?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. Nope. It happens. It's not the first time. It happened once when we were playing a show, a festival in Brisbane, and I pulled the bass out of its case like 1 hour before we were starting, because it was a festival, no sound check or anything. And we were playing to, I think, about probably, I would say like 50,000 people audience, and same thing. It had broken at the neck in the flight on the way up, and I had to tape it all down. I think we drilled and stuck a bolt in and taped it down with gaffer tape, and it held on pretty good. But throughout the show, the action was getting higher, the neck was coming forward, and the action was just getting like higher and higher.
I'm familiar with that.
Throughout the show, and it was like, this is a disaster.
I'm not sure if people, you know, other musicians realize like through what kind of hell we have to go like to do all that, and especially, you know, when they give you like when you have a bass on the rider, and then you get like some bass that you're basically not able to play. It's just like super low action, super high action, or the wrong string. So like, I mean, it's all kind of situations that can go wrong. But I mean, it is what it is. I'm still happy, and I'm sure you are, that we chose this instrument still the coolest instrument. So
well, it's when you need to turn into the Dalai Lama and say, life is suffering. We can follow the path that leads to the end of suffering and just enjoy it for whatever it is. It's an instrument.
awesome. Oh yeah, actually Ryan Gould was talking a little bit about that, like in his episode. If you guys haven't seen it, make sure to do it. All right, I want to get back to Living End a little bit later, but like I want to mention also like some other projects. You played blues as well, right? I want to talk a little bit about. I feel that lots of people know already about Living End, but they're not familiar with your other musical adventures. Like what through these last 20, 30 years, what was going on?
What else is in there? Well, not much actually, because the Living End's kept me awfully busy, and you know, when we're not touring, I have a family. You know, I've got children. My partner's got 2 kids. I've got 2 kids. I like to be home. We toured hard, so we're away from home a lot. So when I am home, I like to be home and present, so that I am part of my kid's life, not just a face on a computer screen to communicate from the opposite side of the world. But there has been periods where we haven't toured as much, and I have had other little projects going on, and the main one was there's a guy who I'm very good friends with called Ash Grunwald, who's a solo blues artist, guitar player, singer, and he's unreal. He's had a career going in Australia and overseas for a couple of decades now, probably. And Andy, drummer, and I both played and we did an album with Ash, doing some of his songs and a couple of covers, and we reworked some of his older songs as well, and a couple of new songs from him. An album called Gargantua, and we toured a bit with that as well, and that was excellent because we played. I've done a lot of gigs with Ash just as a duo, just me and him playing together, and as a trio with Andy. And sometimes we would have a keyboard player playing as well. This guy who's playing Wolf Mother, Ian Perez, who's an amazing keyboard player, absolute lord. He looks like a wizard and he plays like a wizard or some kind of mad scientist or something. But so that was incredibly fun. But also sometimes Ash would put together a big band, like we played the Byron Blues Festival, a big one in Australia, and also the West Coast Blues Festivals and stuff like that, with a big band. So he'd have this, there'd be him and Andy and I and Ian playing keys, and then he would have like a 3-piece horn section and a 3-piece backing vocalist section as well. So yeah, like a big 12-piece band or something, and that was epic. You know, like just having that much kind of input on the stage is a pretty great thing to be part of. So that was really cool. And Ash, it was really different from the Living End, because the Living End we spend a lot of time in a rehearsal room and everything's very structured. I mean, we leave space in our songs for improvisation, but it's kind of planned, you know. Whereas with Ash, it was the opposite. There was only like a little bit of song structure, and it was just always just kind of play by feel and go with the flow. So that was really cool, you know. That was like a bit of a release, being able to do that. And also this was a period when I was living up in Byron Bay for 5 years, and there was a friend of mine who had a recording studio. So he would often call me and get me to sit in on sessions for like singer-songwriter kind of people or whatever. So I'd do a fair bit of that kind of stuff, which was interesting. I always like more acoustic kind of things, more quiet and gentle kind of music, which again is a bit of a antidote to the rock band, you know. It's always good to keep it different. Bluegrass was another thing that I played a little bit of while I was up in Byron. I was like the musical director of Bangalore Bluegrass Festival for its first year, which meant there was a pickers contest, like a fiddlers contest, a pickers contest, a banjo players contest, and a mandolin players contest. So there'd be heats in each instrument, and there was me and just an acoustic guitar player playing these bluegrass standards. And what we would do is we would play the same tune over and over, and we'd have these, like, for example, 4 fiddlers, and we'd start off playing, dun, 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 and one of them would do a solo, and then it would be my job to say, okay, stop. Now, next guy, you do a solo, and we keep playing. Then we'd go around, and then we'd speed it up, and then we'd go around all 4 or 5 fiddlers again, and they'd all play their solo faster, and then it'd be like, okay, now your turn, and then, okay, now let's up the tempo again. And so I had to do heats with the fiddlers, heats with the mandolins, heats with the banjos, heats with the flat pickers, and then finals with them all. I think I ended up playing for a counter that it was like 8 or 9 hours of playing in one day. And it was just full on. I just, was setting me absolutely crazy because all I had was stuck in my head going around. I felt like an absolute loony. It took a while to come down from that experience. They paid me in fried chicken, so that was nice, and beer, so that was lovely. But anyway, I've done, other than the rock band, I've done a few different things. I actually played electric bass in a band once for a friend of mine who's a singer-songwriter in Melbourne who did a few gigs, and that was okay. I don't love playing electric bass, but that was cool to do something different, to do something where it's not, as you say, not such a drag to have to get your instrument from home to a gig, not such a pain in the ass. But so that was cool. But like I've done a few bits and pieces, but Living End is by and large the bulk of what I've spent my last 25 years doing.
Well, it's worth it. I mean, the only cool thing about electric basses is that it's convenient. It's convenient to not to drag the thing
sit down and play it.
Yeah. When you mentioned Ash and playing blues with him, it kind of reminded me a little bit on the times when I was playing with Lemmy. It was all the bands, or my main bands, were kind of like pretty structured, but with him was pretty loose. He would say like, oh, we're just playing, it would be standards, so we would all know the songs, but he would just start playing something on his Rickenbacker, and that would be like, all right, let's do it. And it always sounded cool, with his sound and his voice. But you didn't mention one name. So you played with Kylie Minogue. I want to see how did that happen? That's in my world. That's kind of cool,
Yeah, I mean,
my, guilty pleasure.
Like she's a big celebrity, and like pretty much everyone in suburban Australia grew up watching the TV show Neighbours. So yeah, she's a household name. So like my mum was excited because she probably thinks that's like one of the best things we've ever done in our whole career was play a song with Kylie Minogue.
So you played one song. Was it a festival, or what kind of situation was that?
It was a really interesting thing that we did, actually. It was when there was war and fighting and lots of unrest in East Timor, when they were being invaded by the Indonesian militia armies. This must have been like 2000 or something, I think it was, around about then anyway. And Australia sent a lot of troops over to East Timor to try and stop these Indonesian militia armies from coming and trying to take over. So a promoter here put together a package of Australian artists, like, pretty big Australian artists, to go over there and play a concert for the troops, basically, like an old-fashioned concert for the troops. And so we had John Farnham and Ask Kylie Minogue, this guy called Daryl Braithwaite, this band called The Angels, some sort of big names in the Australian music staple. Went over there. It was kind of safe, but it was still kind of a little bit of unrest happening over there. So it was a really interesting experience for us as musicians. Like we got on the big Hercules plane and flew over there from Darwin. It's only a short flight, and it was all very kind of military and all kind of just weird. So yeah, they put on this big concert, and they had, I think there was about probably 2,000 or 3,000 Australian troops soldiers who came into the gig, and then but they also just had the gates open to the people of Dili, which was the city in East Timor. Left the gates open to the people of the city to just come in and watch the show as well, just you know, for entertainment value, just to kind of try and take their minds off what's been going on. And there were a couple of artists, you know, a couple of singers, you know, Kylie Minogue was one of them, who they asked if we would just be the backing band for. We did it for Doc Neeson, the singer from the Angels as well. We did a few songs with him, and we did just one song. We did it was near Christmas, so we did Jingle Bell Rock, I think it was, with Kylie, and then we did a few songs of our own. And then when the broadcast shut down, because all the troops were all like, you know, 18 to 25-year-old guys, they just wanted us to keep on playing more and more and more and more and more. So we did. That's
an interesting story.
Yeah.
So I usually ask everybody, like, what the band leaders of your band like thought about slap and slapping. Usually often it's in bluegrass, like, you know, they don't want you to slap, and then sometimes want you to play a slap solo, but during a song it's finger style, and in different other situations as well. I mean, blues being one of that. So I wonder, I mean, I assume Chris likes slap, right? He wants you to slap all the time, or like as much as you want, or what is the thing?
As much as I can if the song calls for it. Especially, you know, in the beginning, yeah, he was all about slap. You know, that's where we sort of came from. So it was just kind of, it was all I knew how to do, really. If ever there was any playing that wasn't slap, it was always like a bit of a chore. But slap was what was just kind of natural. It was all I knew how to do, really.
Yeah.
So he was all about it. But you know, Chris was so good for my playing because he learned guitar since he started getting lessons from a really good country picker guy when he was young. You know, he learned him all the way through primary school and high school, and then he went on and did an advanced certificate in jazz and stuff. So I've learned so much from him because I've never had any formal lessons with the bass. I've only just played by ear and learned myself.
Oh, interesting. So you never had any lessons?
No.
Just learning from the records or books or something? Or
records, learning from practicing at home and learning from Chris, you know, learning from, he would write songs, they'd have these chord progressions, and I would learn things from his progressions. And sometimes I'd say, show me that chord, and he'd show it to me, and I'd figure out the notes in the chord, which would give me an idea of what the triads are. And then I'd say, can you play it in a different voicing, or can you simplify it? And I just learn about theory by just doing it, I suppose.
By playing. Wow, awesome.
Yeah.
And
the other thing too is Chris was very kind of strict about pitch and timing and stuff too. And I'll share this because I wonder if any other slappers have had this experience as well, where our first couple of records, I would track the bass, and then as a guide, and then I would play all of my parts on an electric bass because it's fretted and it's perfectly in tune, and then I would overdub my parts on the upright, and then I would have the electric in one speaker and the upright in the other speaker, and we would go, me and the producer would listen to the track, just the drums and the basses, and if there were any notes that were out of tune, that weren't in tune with each other, I would have to go and drop in and fix and replace those notes. So it's an incredibly strict way of getting the pitch right for the whole record.
It's interesting. Oh wow! I mean, if you wanted like to, if you want to have that, as I said, radio-friendly sound, it has to be perfectly in tune. I mean, intonation would be, I mean, groove, I guess, but in groove and intonation would be like two most important things for me. You can get gigs. You would get hired if you have those things down, but if you have if you're an amazing slapper with bad intonation, it's unusable. It's like you can play on YouTube or I don't know, in your living room, but you can't record. You can't really do anything. But there's so on those couple of records, is there any bass guitar on it as well, or it's just upright, but you use it as a guide?
We just use that as a guide to tune it, to make sure the upright was in tune for every single note. So yeah, and then we just delete the electric. That's just
cool. Yeah, I never heard about that system. That's interesting. I heard about a few people doing either electric and upright slap, or upright pizzicato and slap. Actually, Johnny Cash did that on one of the records that it's called Boom Chicka Boom. It was Bob Moore played the notes, and Joe Zinken, who is amazing slap bass player, played slap. And I'm not sure why I think that they were experimenting. Bob Moore did an interview. It's actually on the Art of Slap Bass, so you guys can check it out. And he talked a little bit about it. I assume it was kind of like an experimental thing that they wanted to figure out what is the best way to get the good quality note and slap. So they figured out they should have two bass players, and with their own expertise, they mixed it up. I don't think that's the best way, but I appreciate any kind of effort to make things better. So
yeah, there's no such thing as the best way. It's going to be a continuous search for the right sound.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Different things. Yeah, this is why when I found your Art of Slap Bass site, all these interviews you've had with these people, there's people watching who are just watching this interview or whatever, and you haven't seen. You really do have to check it out, because it's such an amazing resource. I didn't know about half of these people, like Joe Zinken and even Ryan and Kevin and all this kind of stuff. I didn't know. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have heard about these things. Now I've been playing for 25 years, and you've opened a door to a whole new styles of playing and new things, and teaching about the origins and the roots of the instrument and stuff. It's fabulous. There's so much there. It's great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, Art of Slap Bass is a good site. I wanted to. I always, whenever I create something that I want to read for myself. They want to see, that I want to enjoy. So then it becomes all right. So I'm really happy about this, and then I'm excited, even if there's 5 people reading, or 5,000 people. Same when you play a show. I mean, it's better when you have more people, but you have 50 people that know all the lyrics, that are excited about seeing a band. It can make your night. It's you can't make a living that way, but it can make you happy. So it's one of those things. Art of Slap Bass makes me happy. Yeah. And definitely makes me happy, introducing all these people that deserve to be heard, that deserve to be recognized all over. So when a kid nowadays is interested in slap, you can just go to my channel, or to Art of Slap Bass, and see all these guys. I try also to have as many original slap bass players from the 50s. I interviewed Marshall Lytle from Bill Haley's band. Yeah. James Kirkland from Ricky Nelson's band. Ray Campy. Ray Campy started playing bass in the 70s, but he's original rockabilly guy. And I talked to many of them. Some of them are not really able to do an interview, but the ones that are, they're there. So everybody can it's very accessible.
And great for the community as well to be able to share ideas, like we were saying about recording and about, you know, like miking techniques and pickups and technical stuff as well. We need this community.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about that. What's the gear that you're using right now? What's your gear rundown? Like strings, amps, pickups, how many basses, which basses? I want to hear all of that.
Mine's really simple. Hang on, just pause for 1 second. I've got a puppy down the hallway who's making a noise with some stuff. I'm just going to stop it. Wait. Yeah.
All right, this is what happens during a live stream. So I'm gonna have use this opportunity to remind you to subscribe to my channel, and if you're not on an email list, send an email at contact@artofslapbass.com, and that way we'll know when to send you information like about future slap streams and anything that's happening in the Art of Slap Bass world that you don't want to miss. But first step is subscribe to YouTube and check out these few links under the video. That's how you can donate and help us out. Venmo, PayPal, and Patreon. Check out Patreon. It's a cool thing. Oh, so you have a friend over there.
This little puppy who's been running around here all morning has just found something hanging in the hallway that she decided to start playing with that was getting noisy. So I thought I'd better just go and stop her.
Awesome. Awesome.
Doesn't interrupt the interview. But yeah, anyway, question was.
Yeah, people here are easy. So we all enjoy seeing puppies, kids. This is real life. You know, this is COVID time. It's not Rockstar. We don't have to pretend. Yeah, so we have we're real people.
I know.
Gear rundown.
We're all separate. You know, we're all isolating and we're all separate from each other, but we're actually quite connected in quite an intimate kind of way. We're in each other's homes here.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's cool. We're in each other's homes. You're part of the family right now, Djordje.
Exactly. And all of you, you're at Living End's home.
But, I just have a really simple setup. This bass, I don't even know what this bass is. It was I have a luthier in Melbourne. I'm very lucky actually that I think he's one of the best luthiers in the world. His name's Ben Piccolisi, and he has a store and a workshop in Melbourne. And I get most of my basses from him. He just, you know, I basically take his advice on what it is that I should get, and he does it up for me. This is one that I got recently. It's the only one that I've had in a long time that hasn't got some sort of fancy paint job. Although what it does have on it, which I think is quite funny, is he's put along here and down here this is for laying it down just to protect it. He's put someone's belt leather to protect it. He's used like tar from what they use on roads to stick this belt stuff on here to protect it, which I thought was very creative and very effective. Yeah, and kind of a little bit crazy too. But I have just a standard 3/4 bass, and I use Jason from Blast Cult has got me these pickups, the EMG, the magnetic pickups with the, I think it's called the what's it called? The something pickup. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's the one with the magnetics, and it's also got the bug pickup underneath the back of the fingerboard here, which you can't really see because it's underneath some gaffer tape. And it's fabulous. It's exactly what I need. I can't remember what it's called, the pickup. It's got a name. But if you go to his website, Blast Cult, and look at the pickups, you'll see it. You get the whole sort of tailpiece thing, and it's got the preamp and everything in it. And I've always used his stuff, even when he was like with King double bass, and he made me a couple of really beautiful King double basses, which I've still got. And they've always had these magnetic EMG pickups in them, and a slap pickup. And I just play through Ampeg gear because of the sort of the loud big stage, like I'm basically playing in a rock band with Chris is using, big Marshall cabinets. Sometimes he's using 4 of them. The drums are always loud. There's lots of monitoring happening on stage, or there used to be. Now we're using ear monitors, so there's not so much. But I just figured that using like a really, really powerful Ampeg 4 Pro is the amps that I use. They're like 1800 watts or something, some crazy amount of power. You can easily run 2 big 8x10 cabinets off those. And I find that that's what I like to use, because there's so much power that you can have it turned down and play. It's loud on stage, but there's no kind of choking. And the 4 Pro amp is fabulous because it's got built-in compression, which really helps, because I guess, as we all know as bass players, some notes on the bass are really loud and some notes are really quiet. There's sweet spots, and it's just the nature of the instrument. They're not like electric basses where everything's kind of, so even and level. So a bit of compression really helps for that. So pretty simple setup, really. I mean, I've gone through, like, when I look back to like 15, 20 years ago, I've had some pretty convoluted setups with horns and, different speaker cabinets for the slap pickup and different speaker cabinets for the magnetic pickup. And I've done things like put microphones inside the bass. I had a bass where I cut, where you could remove this section, so I could get big microphones and stuff in there as well for recording, and pickups inside, like PZM pickups inside the bass, and oh man, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. I think that that me and Ben Puglisi, this luthier in Melbourne, all of these crazy ideas that we've had for the bass over the years have, it's been fun. It's been good going on the search, the journey for the sound that you want to get. But this setup, these blast pulp pickups, has been working great for me for a long time.
And it's the one that you have a magnetic and the piezo behind the fingerboard?
Yes. That's
cool.
It.
I think it's Channel Blaster or Channel Blaster 2. He has like a few of those.
I'm having a bit of a mental blank. I couldn't remember the name. That's it.
Yeah, he had different names for the old ones, with a King, and then it's been Channel Blaster with the Blast Cult. He made me like a signature pickup that it's version of that, where I can have a pickup on the bridge as well. If I play like a quieter gig, like a jazz gig, then I use more piezo. So it's great. Like, if you guys are not familiar with the Blast Cult and Jason Burns, make sure to go to blastcult.com, I guess. They might have like 2 websites. I'm not sure, because now that you have 2 shops. It's Orange County and London, UK. So they're spreading out. And so how many basses you have?
Well, I have this one, which is kind of new. I just got last year. I have one that I also got from Ben Puglisi, who did a guy who works there is this guy called Tim Kill, and he makes like all these weird and wonderful guitars and all sorts of stringed instruments. And he did this. He also works on motorbikes, and he did this thing that he's done on motorbikes before, where he put the bass outside his house, and he put all this like glue and all this sand and all this tar and all this stuff and all these layers and layers and layers of paint. And then he sprayed some kind of acid on it, which ate into all of the layers of stuff that he'd put onto the bass. And it ate through to all the layers of paint, and it just looks like a giant rusted piece of metal, but it's actually not. It's wood. It's really good. He did an amazing job on it. So I have that one. I also have the bass that got broken in Mexico last year, which is kind of like almost semi-retired now, I would say, that bass. It's taken a few blows, so it's kind of, on its last.
Is that black bass with kind of like a nice finish?
Yeah.
Kind of pattern.
It's got a finish that I generally refer to as, it's a bit like your grandma's curtains or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And then I have my my checkered, black and white checkered king bass that's got the king double bass, which has got the skull on the background that Jason Burns did. And he used, rather than just standard white paint, he used this glow in the dark paint. It's an unreal bass. I just love it. It's really, really cool. And I've got another king bass that I got from him, which is red, like a candy apple kind of red with, you can see the grain in it. Another absolutely beautiful bass. He doesn't just make good basses. He makes beautiful looking basses.
I think that's the one that you played in San Francisco, and I seen you at the Slims. It was Slims for the first time. I remember it was a reddish bass and you could see the wood.
Yeah. And then I've also got some another checkered bass that I got from somewhere, and I did the checkerboards on the side, similar to the one that Jason did. That's sitting somewhere. I think it's still sitting in Jason's workshop in Los Angeles or something. You probably know more about it.
Yeah, that's the one. I told you that, or I said that maybe to Chris. I went to visit Jason, and I was like, "Is this Scott's bass?" It was like, it was kind of like torn apart. And yeah. I remember that I either sent a text to you or Chris. I forgot, but whoever replied said like, "Oh, the bass is over there." Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, well, we went through a phase when we were really trying to kind of have when the Living End was trying to, we had an American record deal with Warner Brothers, and we had songs on the radio and film clips and stuff like this, and we were trying to have a good crack at the American market.
Mm-hmm.
So we left instruments there, and we had amps and stuff and drums and everything in America, so it was cheaper for us to come backwards and forwards all the time because we were always doing it. And I think I lost track, and that bass ended up at Jason's place, and it's just still there. Like 10 years ago.
When I seen it, like maybe 5 years ago or something, and I asked Jason, he's like, "I think they forgot about this bass because it was there."
I can't believe you haven't used it as firewood yet.
Yeah, it was. I remember that was. Those were the stickers. Is that did you do it with the stickers, that checkerboard on that bass?
Yeah, it's all just stuck on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Is that a first checkerboard bass?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there was two. Okay, king double bass, that the real thing, but that was the second one. And that was the first one.
Oh man, there was another one that I had. It was a really nice German Meinl bass as well that I had once too. But that was when I was going through the phase of trying to mount microphones and pickups and stuff inside it. So I'd had holes cut into it and doorways that opened, and oh man, I really messed up that one. I don't even know what the fate of that one. Oh, actually, I know what happened to that one. I ended up giving it to a friend of mine who is an industrial designer, and he turned it into a rocking chair. Oh. It was pretty wild thing, actually, and I don't know what happened to the rocking chair, but it was pretty wild.
Wow.
Back of the rocking chair was the bass, and he used the headstock as the arms for the rocking chair, and it was kind of cool.
I hope no classical musicians are watching this, or maybe I hope. Wow, that's crazy. Have you ever sat on it?
I'm really starting to lose track of what happened to that older basses.
That's awesome. Wow. One thing that I always like asking is, by your opinion, what would be your advice? Like, how do people get a gig? It's kind of hard to imagine, but really outside of few of us, like just in an upright slap bass world, not many people have a gig that it's like a touring act for many years, and that it's doing it a little bit on a higher level. So how would you what would be your advice? Like, what would you say? Like, hey, this is play as much as possible, go out, or be online, present, whatever, what would be your advice?
Well, there's no one thing. It's all of those things. But I think the first thing that springs to my mind is because we play an instrument that can be so limiting, obviously the first thing that people think when they see the instrument is jazz and classical. Rockabilly is a bit more of a cult thing. So it is a bit of an abstract kind of instrument. So I would say that the first thing you need to make sure of is to be versatile, is to make sure that you can adapt to different styles of music with the instrument. You make sure you can play rock music, play pop music, play rockabilly music, play metal, play whatever. Like, just be versatile with it, because that just opens you up to the amount of things that you can do. And then, and the other important thing too, which we've already discussed, is your pitch and your tuning and timing and tightness and all that kind of stuff. These things are really important, because even as we've already touched on, if those things aren't sorted, then it's great to play on your own solo in your own lounge room. But once you're playing with other people, you really need to have those kind of things sorted. Otherwise, it sounds like a bit of a disaster. So it doesn't matter how good you are. If your tuning's out, then it's out, and it's not good. And otherwise, I guess, it's just a combination of all those things. Like now, once upon a time, I would have said go out there and play as much as you can, and I still say that, because there's nothing quite like the instant feedback of an audience for how things are going with you playing, with your songs, with your band, or whatever you're doing. But online is so important now as well. Like, I guess all us old guys hate to admit it, but it really is super important. It's the way of the future, and it's how ideas are communicated through the world now. So it's really important to be able to understand what avenues, what roads to promote yourself and to share your music and to collaborate with other people. And a lot of that kind of stuff can happen online, and it's important to kind of know that. But yeah, I don't know. Otherwise, I don't know. I still just think if you've got something unique, you've got something appealing, and you've got something good, then people are going to notice. You're going to have it. Just as long as you can make an impact on people. That was our thing, like we put together our band because we liked rockabilly, we liked punk, we liked rock and roll. So we put together the kind of band that we wish existed, and that would have had an impact on us if we had seen us. And so we thought that if it would have had an impact on us, there's no reason why it wouldn't have an impact on other people. So we had faith in ourselves, and I think that was a very wise thing for us to realize at an early age. So if you're doing what you truly believe in, and it has an impact on you, then there is no reason why it's not going to have an impact on other people. And that makes everything else easier. If you're making an impact on people, then they're going to share your music. They're going to talk to other people. They're going to want to contact you. So yeah, I don't know what else to say, but yeah, just try and make an impact, I suppose. Don't fall into trying to copy something that's already been done. Like, put your own personal spin on it. And yeah, I think impact is the important word here.
I agree with you. Are there any mistakes that you can point out, like that you were doing as far as learning how to play bass, that you can maybe like younger players can benefit out of that, just not to make the same mistakes? Is there anything else, anything that comes to your mind?
I guess, yeah, just trying too hard to do exactly what someone else has already done. and thinking, well, if we just copy what they do, then we'll have the same success as them, because that just doesn't work. I mean, there are things, you know, like when the punk scene came along in the 90s, there were a lot of punk rock bands that were pretty much exactly the same as each other. But I just don't think that's a good way to roll. I think that by all means, you know, like take your influences seriously and learn from them. And yeah, learn, like, you know, Lee Rocco was a great one for me. It's like learn what he was doing note for note, because it's going to teach you so much. But then take it off in your own direction. Don't just there comes to a certain point where you go, okay, I'm getting stuck in this one channel of copying this one thing. You know, it gets to a point where that then becomes unhealthy. Like, it can build you up to a great point, but if you don't then break out of it, you that's a mistake. I think you need
absolutely agree. And then especially the bass players, I mean, especially the bands with upright basses, kind of, I think that work very well as a package deal with punk bands. Like, so did touring with Green Day be like, was that like kind of like a important thing for the living end?
It was, yeah. It didn't do anything for my slapping, because finding Green Day meant our style went. We were still a pretty, like, you know, straight up rockabilly kind of band, and then when we found Green Day, which was like another 3-piece, super cartoony, really charismatic, kind of fun, energetic kind of band, we were just like, wow, like we were taken out at the knees for a second time, you know. It was like, wow, this is unreal music as well. And so we had this kind of rockabilly stuff and then this punk stuff, and we put them side by side. You know, we did what we did with the Stray Cats. We learned all the Green Day songs, and, you know, they were a huge influence. So that was awesome. And then we, you know, kind of then other things came in as well. Green Day opened us up to the whole world of punk rock, you know, like the 70s punk rock, the Clash and the Pistols and everything else as well. The giant Pandora's box that opened was like, wow, this is unreal. So
you played a show recently with them, like last year or something, right?
Yeah, well, we toured with them. Oh, we played with them. We played one show with them in London at Hyde Park a few years ago. But we toured with them early. It was when they first put out Djordje, and it was just before our first album came out. They came to Australia, and we supported them on that tour. And it was like reasonably big venues. Like Djordje had just came out, so they were just starting to blow up. And we were still kind of just a rockabilly band in Melbourne. We hadn't done a lot of, you know, touring or anything. It was just sort of starting to get played on community radio and stuff like that, on the rockabilly shows and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden we scored the Green Day support, because we like literally sent stuff to their manager and sent stuff to their fan mail address and stuff like that. And they chose us, you know, 1 in a million, but they chose us to do the support in Australia, and we ended up getting along really well with them and having an unreal time, and we got a really good reaction from their audience. So it kind of put us on the map in Australia. And then a few years later, they also invited us to come to America when they put out that record Warning. They invited us to come to the States and do a national tour with them as well. And that was like back in the day where national tours went for 2 months, and, you know, it was like 5 shows per week in every city, and it was unreal. It's just really, really, they gave us a really good leg up in you know, back in those days. And it was flattering for us, like, especially when they came to Australia. Like, Chris and I had already bought tickets to go and see them play. And then we were like, hey, let's just, you know, fat chance, but let's just send them our demo tape, and we'll send them a T-shirt, and we'll write a little bio, and we send it to them and see what happens. And then sure enough, we got a phone call one day, and it was like, what?
That's amazing. Are you still friends with those guys?
Sorry?
Are you still friends with Green Day?
Oh yeah, we haven't seen them for a long time. Like I said, we did a gig in Hyde Park with them a couple of years ago. So yeah, like there's been a few times when they've been to Australia and we've caught up with them, and we've been in America and caught up with them. I remember when they were recording American Idiot, and we were in Los Angeles playing a show, and Mike came and picked us up and took us to the hotel that they were staying at in LA, and we just hung out with them and caught up with them, spent the night with them. And they was in the studio. They were halfway through or 3/4 of the way through recording American Idiot, and I just remember them. And we were saying, "Oh, so how's your new album going?" And they're going like, "Oh, we can't talk about it. We want to keep it secret. We don't want to tell anyone what we're doing, but we're doing something that's like." They were so excited. They were saying, "We're doing something that's really amazing." And sure enough, they were talking about one of the biggest records ever. Like, I don't know how many million copies it sold, but they were so excited about it. It was so good to see. And yeah, sure enough, it ended up being that record. It was amazing. But yeah, so that was cool.
That's great. I mean, they kind of had like a second wave and really made themselves huge with that record. Yeah, it's I like Green Day. Trey, cool from the band, he comes to see. He's good friends with Mike, our drummer, Tiger Army's drummer, and then he comes to see us when we play San Francisco.
Yeah, cool.
And we hang out. And so, but you opened up for the Stray Cats as well, right?
Yeah, we did. We opened up for them once. It must be like 10 years ago or something now. But once when they came to Australia, we opened up for them on one show.
One show. Oh, okay. I thought it was a tour. No?
No, not in Australia. It wasn't. But last year, we did some shows in the UK with them. There was one. There was one in where did we start? Was it in Belgium or something? Some festival somewhere. And then there was a couple of shows in England as well that we opened up for them on as well just last year. So that was epic. That was amazing. That was just.
I bet.
Again, just kind of pinch yourself moments.
It's that's how I feel sometimes. It's just we're playing with all these guys. I had their posters on my walls. It's just wow, this is cool. I made it.
It's a humbling experience.
Yep. Were you hanging out with them at all, or was this kind of your camp, our camp, kind of?
Sort of. Divided? Really. I mean, there wasn't a lot of hanging out being done. There was a couple of little hanging out bits after shows and stuff. But Slim Jim, we've hung out with a few times because Chris played in a band with Slim Jim in LA, and they did some touring together. They had some band called
Jack Tars.
Jack Tars. I can't remember what they had a name first, and then they changed it to Jack Tars.
Oh, Chris told me about it, and I seen him playing. That's when I met Chris. He was playing with Jim. I came to see Jim, and then Chris was playing with him. Was it Dead Man Walking?
Dead Man Walking, that's it.
Okay. They played in a kind of like a small room of the old Galaxy of the observatory in Santa Ana.
Yeah, so that was doing covers other guys from other LA bands and stuff. But yeah, so Slim Jim, he's unreal. So he's come seen us play a few times, and yeah, he's I know Chris can call him a friend, and he's just such a lovely guy and such a true supporter of music. He's such a fan still. He's still got a very big burning heart for music and live music and rock and roll and stuff. He's such the real deal. It's amazing. And yeah,
I love great. I love JK.
We saw Brian. We were playing a show in is it Atlanta? Is that where Brian lives these days? Atlanta.
I think that no. I think that the Brian lives in Minneapolis.
Minneapolis, that's right. And we were playing a show we were supporting Australian band Midnight Oil. Who are one of my favorite bands of all time. Anyway, that's another story. But yeah, Brian came along to the show to see us play, and we were able to catch up with him and have a chat in the dressing room. And again, it was just one of those moments where I was sitting there going, if there's no way that I could, that my 17-year-old self would believe that my 40 whatever year old self is sitting in a band room about to play the support for Midnight Oil, and Brian Setzer's in our band room. What the hell? How in the world did I end up here?
Amazing.
It's just so hard, but yeah, they're so lovely. They've been such a gift in my life.
Yeah, those guys are great. I remember. I think that I was on the tour with Tiger Army when I came to see you play in Phoenix, and I think that show was like a few days before that or a couple of weeks before that. I remember that all of you were excited about it, that you told me that story about Brian.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I love Brian. I love Jim. I used to play with Jim and Lemmy and in a headcat, and it was like great experience. Yeah. It was really cool listening to their stories, being in a car, and like, you know, I was always very grateful about that experience.
All those great stories about their early days in London and stuff as well.
It's crazy, right? Yeah, it's awesome. Well, let's go back to a little bit. You know, we should, I think, wrap it up. I'm so excited, like, to talking about Slap. I can do like for days, but we should wrap it up soon. I want to know, what were you, by your opinion, the most essential Slap-based recordings that you would recommend for people? Not yours. I mean, we can talk about yours as well, but like, you know, the ones that influenced you, and after all these years, like, which were the recordings that you would kind of choose as the most essential recordings?
Well, for me, obviously, Stray Cats, you know, pretty much anything, any record, any song. It's just a well of it's a massive resource as far as Slap bass goes. Is anything the Stray Cats did. But for me, I guess, you know, anything other than the usual. There's obviously Bill Haley and the Comets, because the slap's really easy to hear. That's the thing. Like, if we're talking about recordings from the 50s and stuff, obviously the quality, sometimes the quality is so rough that it's kind of hard to tell what's going on. And I mean, I guess that's all part of the fun, is trying to figure it out and experiment. But it's kind of easier when it's really obvious and easy to tell what's going on. And that's why Bill Haley's recordings were always good, because their bass was always, I don't know what it was about those recordings, but it was always so crystal clear, and the playing is so amazing. They're good ones to go to for lessons. But I would also say that the Happy Drivers is another one. There's an album called Toowoomba, which was my favourite. Toowoomba just so happens to be an Australian town. They loved coming to Australia. They came out here quite a few times. And that's a great album to learn stuff from, because, you know, there's heaps of really good and interesting slap. And like I was saying before, there's not much sort of 12-bar kind of stuff with the Happy Drivers. It's all just more different kind of diverse kind of bass lines and stuff. So yeah, I guess, I don't know, like, beyond that, I loved playing along with Buddy Holly's stuff as well. I thought Joe Molden was a really great bass player. I really like play by the rules kind of stuff, a very neat player, and which suited Buddy's songwriting. And I love everything about Buddy Holly and the Crickets. I'm a huge fan. But I'd say that, yeah, but any kind of Buddy Holly recordings are good lessons in kind of real traditional rockabilly slap. Yeah, I don't know what else. What else did I used to sit there and just keep on to putting the needle back and going over and over and over the same line.
There's so many things. Buddy Holly stuff is great. I don't think that Joe actually slapped. There were other guys a couple other guys that played slap, but I don't think that Joe was playing like strictly pizzicato. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. So, but it's great. But Buddy Holly was always big influence on me, especially because of that melodic approach and more pop, and then less raw, but still very energetic.
Yeah, that's right.
It's great. If you ever tour Texas again, make sure to stop by Buddy Holly Museum. It's fun. Wow. You can see like, lots of cool things over there.
Is he from Lubbock,
Texas?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
It's great. All right. So I kind of like, if you don't mind, I would like to hear you play something again. Are you too tired after 2 hours of talking, or you don't mind playing a little bit more?
No, it's cool. I can manage.
All right, let's do something. What are we gonna do?
Well, I thought that maybe it might be fun to play the song, one of our songs, which is the instrumental called "Closing In," which is the last track of our first album. I just love it. I've always loved it. I've never tired of it. I just think it's a fun song. It's got some weird timing things in it. A little bit of a backstory on the song is I mentioned before that Chris did some study. He went to a TAFE university thing and did like an advanced certificate in jazz. And as one of the like assessment tasks, he wrote a song basically. And this is pretty much it. But I guess he wrote it and it was a bit more sort of trad for the school thing, and then we just kind of gave it our living end injection, and it ended up being an instrumental that we put on our first album. And I've always just loved it. Like, I learned heaps from it. Like, this is going back to over 25 years ago that this song was recorded. And as I said, I didn't study music. I got some piano lessons when I was a kid, but I never really studied properly. And I just sort of fumbled my way through learning the bass. So when Chris comes out with things like this that have got these kind of melodies and these kind of chords, I've got to like step up my understanding. And it was great, really good for my learning curve. So yeah, I figured I might just play this one.
Let's do it.
Cut. All right. I just need to get it on my phone so I can use the playback. Just quickly.
I'm excited. All right, you played Maiden, Stray Cats, now Living End. It's time.
Okie dokie. So hopefully this all just works. I'll hit play and
sure. Let's do it.
That's it.
Awesome. I'm really glad you played Living End. And I noticed that you played some double stops. Where did that come from? Do you often do that, or?
What did I play?
Like you play like 2 strings at the same time. I think in guitar world it's called a double stop.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do actually. Not very often, but sometimes. And I tend to only do it when they're like open. Sometimes I use, generally when they're open, like playing the bar, like here, I tend to stay away from because it's too challenging. But the other one that I like too is playing the chord that has, I don't know, what do you call it, a C and an E, but the C here and the E here is this one. This interval.
Maybe C6?
Something like that, I suppose. That's another one that I use occasionally, yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. Like unfortunately, it's kind of hard like to play it during a song, when lots of things are happening, but for the end, it's great.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, like there's a song called "Carry Me Home" where Chris is playing a lick and Andy and I are just going like bang and hitting notes and letting them ring out, which I use a chord for. Yeah, it works in that.
Yeah, for those long chordal notes, it's great. It's really a bit
metal sometimes too, which is what I like about it.
Yep. I think I have one last question. So Living End. So where did you guys get the name? When did you switch from the Runaway Boys to the Living End, and why?
Well, we kind of had both bands going at the same time for a little period there.
Oh.
So we had the Runaway Boys and we'd play anywhere we could, but a lot of our gigs were like driving out to country towns and playing at the town hall where they'd have the rock and roll dance and everyone would bring their own drinks and food, and we'd play like 4 or 5 sets. We'd play all night, and there'd be lots of dancing and lots of people telling us, "Can you just slow down a little bit?" You know, like that kind of stuff. And at the same time, we were starting to write a couple of tunes, write a couple of songs, and also learn a couple of songs that weren't rockabilly songs. You know, like learn some kind of 80s songs from our childhood and stuff, which was kind of weird, but it was fun. So we didn't feel like we fit the straight up rockabilly thing. So we thought maybe we should just start a, you know, and we're still hanging on to the Stray Cats thing. We've been called the Runaway Boys. We just kind of felt like we were outgrowing ourselves a little bit, and we needed to move on. But we also needed to be able to play gigs and stuff. So we kept the Runaway Boys thing going for a little while, and then sometimes we would do gigs as the Living End, where we'd play more of our original songs and just a few covers. So the name came from the film Rock Around the Clock, the Bill Haley film. You know, at the end of the film, you're familiar, yeah? It says the end at the film, and then living pops through the middle of it. And so that was like, wow, that's a great idea for a band name. That's epic. And we knew that the living end is an old saying, you know, from the 50s. If someone says to somebody, "Hey, you're the living end," that means, you know, you're a bit crazy. They say it's in Greece, in that movie Grease, when the sock hop thing or whatever you call it is, the dance is happening. I think someone, one of the radio guys or something says, "Oh, you know," I know it's one of the women says it about the guy from the radio station. She's talking about how cute he is, and she says, "Oh, he's the living end," you know, like,
oh wow,
he's great, he's crazy. It's good. Yeah, it was a cool old saying as well. So we just thought, yeah, it's a good name for a band.
It's a great name.
It doesn't sound like a rock band. It's not like Johnny someone and his, you know, hubcaps or whatever.
Yep.
That just sounds like it could be any kind of music. So we found that appealing about it as well. So yeah, just kind of a few reasons. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So any plans for now? Future plans? How do you keep yourself sane?
Plans to stay home a lot, which is fine by me. I'm cool with it. I like being home. That's cool.
You told me that you surf, right?
Oh, not anymore. I lived up in Byron. I have surfed, yeah, ever since I was a kid. But I spent 5 years living by the coast, so I did heaps of surfing then, but not so much now. The beach is a long way from, you know, it's like an hour and a half drive or whatever. So, and it's cold where I live now. It's cold. The water is very, very cold.
Oh, really? Okay.
Getting older and less brave. So I don't surf as much as I used to. I don't really call myself much of a surfer anymore. So, yeah, I'm just kind of happy kicking it at home, happy hanging around home, thank goodness, because that's really all we're allowed to do these days.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I live on the beach, and I don't surf. I mean, I tried a few times. But, you know, I definitely would not call myself a surfer. And you played a show like recently, like last couple of weeks ago or something. Like you did you do some online thing with Chris?
It's an online thing, yeah. There's an Australian beer company called Cooper's who were doing this series, I think, of like 4 or 5 shows just on Saturday nights, where they were trying to like create this kind of pub atmosphere online, and they'd have a band each week, and it was okay. Like it's certainly no substitute for a live show. It's more like, from a playing point of view, it's like going into a studio and playing on a TV show, but instead of doing 1 song, you do 10. Or it's like being in a rehearsal room or something. Like it was man. I mean, it was great to be in a room with the other guys and like blow out the cobwebs and you know, and play lay it down. It was fun, but yeah, certainly no substitute for the real thing.
I really hope that's not the future of live music.
No, it can't be. Like, yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
Whether we're waiting for a vaccine or whatever, like, yeah, it'll be behind us one day, this whole thing.
All right. Well, at least that, I hope you might be doing more of that. And I hope there's going to be more music, more. Is there any records in work? Like, do you plan a new Living End record anytime soon?
We started working before COVID. When I mentioned that before COVID, we were sort of halfway through a tour. And during the time that we were doing that touring, we were also working on some new material as well. So that's cool. That's sort of on the go. So yeah, we will put stuff out, but it probably won't be till next year, I think. Chris is going to put out a record. He's been working on a solo record.
His solo, yeah. He mentioned that when I was talking to him last year. We went together on a brunch at Swingers in Hollywood. He was talking about that solo, and he mentioned that you guys plan to start working on a new record, but that was before this whole apocalypse started. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure what happened. All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up after 2 hours and 30 minutes. Man, flew by like this.
Been a marathon.
Thanks so much. I'm stoked to have you here. I'm sure that our audience is stoked as well. You gave some amazing tips. You guys should practice now, especially that warm up. It's pretty cool. I guarantee. And I hope to see you play live sometime soon. I don't know when that's going to be, but soon, somewhere.
No, everyone's itching. Everyone's itching to get back into it again. So when it is time for it to all happen, imagine how it's going to be bigger and better than ever, because everyone's so excited to be able to go out there and do what they do again. It's going to be such a big release. But yeah. But anyway, at least we got this for the meantime. Thanks so much for having me. I've been so excited to talk to you and to be on your show.
Thank you.
I know I said it a couple of times, but I'm really grateful that you've created this. It's such a great resource for us bass players and heaps of good information. And yeah, thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Of course, you're an essential part.
I've got one question though. Given that you're such a rockabilly, you know a lot about rockabilly, I've always pondered this. Why do you think so many rockabilly songs start with the word "well"?
Oh, I'm primarily a bass player. Well, I'm not sure.
You ever thought about it though? There's not many rockabilly songs that don't start with the word "well." It's crazy.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah, if you asked me anything about slap or bass, I'm sure that I would have an answer. But with "well" thing, Chris should know that. He's
if I could ask Elvis one question, that would have to be it.
Oh, really?
Well, starting every song. Well.
Yeah, maybe that was the thing. Man, they were waiting for those couple of seconds to get an inspiration.
Yeah.
They're going to talk about shoes or chicks or cars.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, thanks again. And I'm glad that you've been watching the Slap stream. I'm really glad to have you here. And I can't wait to see you again.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers.
Let me switch. All right, guys. That was Scott Owen. I'm super excited that I had him on the show, the Slap stream. He found time. We've been talking about it for a little bit. It was like a little bit of a scheduling conflict. Like, are we going to do it when it's convenient for you in Australia or for me in Slapsville, California? So we found a solution that kind of worked out well for both of us. I'm thankful for your comments and for especially for those donations via PayPal and Venmo. Those links are below if you're inclined to donate. And a few Patreons that I just started a couple of weeks ago, that page. And I'm glad that you guys have been checking that one out. We offer some perks for it, for your donations and support. So please check it out. Patreon link is also down below. And the most important thing, subscribe. I believe that the subscribe button is going to be somewhere here. So if you haven't clicked on that one, click on it, please. Scott is not very much on social media, but maybe if you follow him on Instagram, I'll put his link down below as well. Maybe he's going to notice, oh, maybe I should post more often. And my links are below as well. Follow me, follow Art of Slap Bass. That's most important. Instagram, Facebook, and website. And don't forget, never fret. Slide it in smooth and keep it in a groove. This is Djordje, and I'll see you next Saturday.